This is my moment.
Oh man.
Okay. So new episode, new intro.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that one, man.
Okay.
I got to tell you, I like you took a creative left turn there, but man, there's something vibey about that.
I'm diversifying my portfolio. Is what I'm doing.
It's showing
for the show. Yeah. So.
Okay, we might have to go to a fan vote on this at some point for the three people that are listening to us.
Yes,
right now. You know,
I like that.
I agree.
Yeah, as long as there's at least two listen. No, that had to be three. So a minority would be ruled out. Yeah. So as long as we have three listeners, we can get them to chime in on these and
on the intros.
We'll have the official. Yeah.
That one had great energy to it. I feel like
it really did.
It was a vibe.
Honestly, I feel like I didn't realize you were like on a old school Metallica binge over the last few days. So it's kind of cool. I admire that.
Diversifying my portfolio. I'm diversifying my portfolio musically.
The sweater threw me. The yellow and white striped sweater, the bold print. I did not expect that to come out of that. So kudos to you for just bringing it.
Well played. Well played. And for those that aren't watching, I have a yellow and white sweater on because I want to look professional today.
It's good color.
I take this podcast very seriously. These guys in their cool hats and their black t-shirts. I, on the other hand, know this is a very serious podcast and that I need to present myself professionally.
This does have a BMW M logo on it for whatever reason, so it's relevant.
For whatever reason.
I don't have any logos on the tee.
Light flex.
I'm just gonna wear. I think I'm just gonna wear a different Giants hat every episode, though, just to spite Jacques.
I kind of like that idea.
That's kind of an affront to everyone, but hey, do what you feel is.
To be honest, I'm just being true to myself. Like this is just how I come. Jacques knows he's seen this for years.
I just don't. I don't know why you don't wear a Dodger hat or a Yankees.
hat. I may have to throw on that World Series champion Rangers hat that y'all heard of the Rangers, right? From the town that I live in, from the state that I grew up in. Y'all heard of them, right? Yeah.
The professionalism of this podcast is just going out of the window.
It is. Let's get it going. Welcome to Cars and Kicks. My name's Nick with my guys Erik and Jacques. We got all sorts of stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, we got a good one. I'm actually excited about today because I want one. I haven't bought one, but I want one. But I don't want one because I might want the brother or sister or cousin. I don't know what the other one. But then the new one looks really interesting as well. And so it's like maybe just wait for the new one. But then it's like, I kind of want the original one because it has a lot of space, and not that I would ever use that space for anything, but it seems really exciting. So
Jacques coming through with the teasers. This is gonna. People are waiting, with bated breath. What was that statement?
I don't want to give it away, but I'm legitimately excited for today, and I want to talk about it because I do want one, but it's the. I'll just,
Nick, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about, actually, you're going to be the expert in this. So we're going to talk about the Rivian. We're going to talk about the Cybertruck. We're going to talk about modern technology. We're going to talk a little bit about some sneakers that may or may not align with that moving forward.
May not, yeah.
And, we'll probably get a little nostalgia in there. I think that always comes with sneakers because as Jacques saying all that about siblings and cousins and all that stuff, my mind started going, yeah. But I too am in Jacques' mental state right now of like, I'm excited for this episode because I want to talk to Erik about the Rivian.
See, yes. I feel like now I'm sensing where that inspiration for the intro song came from because like the Cybertruck font is like as metal as it gets, right? So cars. I get it now. Look, see, I am diving into Jacques' creative psyche here, and I get it. It makes sense now. Man,
it's the depth for me. It's the depth.
We're witnessing a genius at work here.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging. So let's talk Rivian first. So Erik, you made the plunge into the world of electric vehicles.
I did,
and got yourself a Rivian R1T.
I did. Yeah, so, it's not our first like plunge into the electric world. My wife dipped a toe, so to speak, years ago with a BMW i3 as like her little commuter car to work and everything. And then she also has a Polestar 2. Which she drives back and forth to work here. So we've kind of over the years we've gravitated to the electric vehicle, and for very good reasons, right? Like I mentioned in our last podcast about, can car people be electric car people, or is that just like pull your car person card? And this is, I feel like maybe the ignorant side of things would say, yeah, you can't like electric vehicles if you're a diehard car person. But I beg to differ for a variety of reasons. And I think in this case, everything has a use case, right? And different types of sneakers, different type of cars, etc. The Polestar, when we got that for Candace, my wife, she's got a almost 90-mile round trip commute every single day. And she was driving a BMW X5 when she first started this new job. Well, it's been a year now, and spending about $500 a month in gas. Oof. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And that's at Texas prices.
Texas gas.
That'd have been like $800-900 a month in California.
Yeah, in LA prices, that's a house.
Yeah. So that got us revisiting that idea of a commuter car. Mm-hmm. Now the argument can be made that you could go, full cheap and go plug-in Prius or something like that, which they're not cheap. No car is cheap nowadays, but they're more or less a decent entry price point to the EV world. But I like the style of the Polestar. All that's subjective and everything. Fast forward to what we opened with, the Rivian, and the reason I chose that now. So my daily driver for the past 4.5 years has been a Raptor. I've got a 2020 Ford Raptor. I love it. One of my favorite vehicles I've ever owned. I've owned a lot of cars and trucks and very diverse grouping. But I don't do Raptor things with it out here in Texas. When I lived in LA, I would go out to the desert and bomb through the desert, which is what it's really designed for. During COVID, my son and I, he was only like a year and a half old at the time, we would just go out in the middle of the desert, go out in the middle of nowhere. You couldn't be around people, so it was like my adventure escape vehicle. And it was amazing at that. Then we moved up to Vancouver, and it was great up there. A little wide for those trails. I wanted that color actually. Nick just pulled up the picture of the Raptor there. Mine is black, but amazing, super capable vehicle. But I find myself going back and forth to Kroger now. And it is a bit overkill for that. So I started looking at options. I do end up going to Home Depot, Lowe's, stuff like that, because I've gotten big into lawn care and stuff like that. So I'm hauling bags of mulch. So I needed a truck.
I love it.
I looked at a bunch of different options, including the Ford Lightning, be an easy transition F-150 platform to another F-150. Liked it. But the long and short of it is the Rivian, to me, I've followed that company since they first launched the prototypes. It was originally the A1T and A1S. They're the truck and SUV. I think that was in like 2018, maybe 2019 when they announced those. Loved the design. I like the company, what they're kind of doing and what their long-term goals are. Their marketing, their branding is all on point. The buying experience is a whole other topic that we can get into here in a minute, but it leaves a lot to be desired. But the truck itself is awesome. And I still have the Raptor. It's as of this podcast, it's for sale. So if anybody's listening or watching, you want a Raptor, hit me up. But having the two side by side to compare, like, the Raptor, which is by all means a super truck or sports truck, and this kind of futuristic version of what a truck looks like, unless you're Elon Musk, which we'll get to in a minute with the Cybertruck. It's cool to have them side by side and compare them. And I mean, the R1T is awesome. It's slowly becoming one of my favorite vehicles I've owned for a variety of reasons.
So with the Rivian, are you? I think the first thing that comes to mind about this, thinking about the sneakers and the Cars and Kicks concept of what we're putting together here, thing about sneakers that I think a lot of people do is they will buy a particular pair of shoes knowing that they're not going to wear that for certain things. You know, like if you go out and buy a crazy pair of Air Jordans or a crazy pair of Air Max or some, you know, really high end shoe, you're probably not wearing that pair to, you know, a festival of some kind. You're probably not taking that to the desert. You know, you're very much like segmenting your lifestyle choices by what shoe you purchased, right? So do you feel you're missing out on anything with the Rivian, you know, especially coming from the Raptor, which is obviously like
a beast.
Probably arguably one of the most beast-like vehicles made for the public, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think this, I'm going to miss the Raptor first and foremost. Definitely. It's just stylistically, I think it's going to go down as one of the coolest looking trucks of all time. You know, I can see it aging well already. It's believe it or not, one of the most comfortable vehicles I've ever driven. Side benefit of having an off-road vehicle is kind of a soft, supple suspension, right? So it soaks up bumps like nothing else. And there's a Shelby Raptor right there. How much does that sell for? Oh, bid to 96, didn't even meet the reserve. Bring a Trailer is going to need its own episode at one point in time.
Definitely.
But to answer your question, and it's a good one, is do I feel like I'm missing anything with R1T? And although I've only had it at this point about a week or so, I don't. As a matter of fact, I feel like I've gained a lot. This is the Swiss Army knife of trucks in a variety of ways, right? I haven't taken it off-road yet, so I can't give first-person experience as to how it compares to the Raptor. And they're kind of apples and oranges in that regard, but I can tell you there's like a million different suspension settings. It's got air suspension, so you can raise and lower it by 8-9 inches. It's got a whole plethora of off-road modes, from rock crawl, sand, snow, drift, rally. Like you can play around with these different modes within the Rivian and really kind of transform what it is. Or you can put it in eco mode. And in eco mode, it disengages the two rear motors. I guess I should clarify, I have the quad motor R1T. There is a dual motor option. But in eco mode, disengages the two rear motors, and you've got a front wheel drive truck that gets better economy, basically, which is interesting. Nice. But there's all these like different personalities that you can kind of grab just by the push of a button, so to speak. And the highlight of it all is, yes, the Raptor's a beast, and yes, it is quick, still is quick. 835 horsepower in the Rivian R1T. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat. Quarter mile, something like 11.6 at 112, and I think it would go quicker, but they have it governed at 112. It won't go any faster than that. So I'm definitely not giving up anything in the straight line performance aspect. As a matter of fact, I'm now in full-on supercar territory with these acceleration numbers, and it's fun. That's when I'm going to Kroger, I can get there 30 seconds quicker nowadays. So it's awesome. But no, man, I mean, if you dive deep into it, there's a lot that this R1T is capable of and can do, and I'm looking forward to spending more time with it, and we'll have some follow-up, in future episodes for sure. But so far, it's awesome, except for the buying experience, which we can talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it these days, the buying experience. People want that to be such a nice thing now. Like, people have such a high level of expectation for that. It's not like the sneaker world where I'm not going to say that. Buying directly from the brands is challenged. Well, I guess this is what it is. It is buying directly from the brand.
It is.
This is not. So yeah. So then So it is like sneakers. It is like the sneakers app or the Confirmed app. So it's pretty much like it feels harder than it should be.
Yeah. The difference, the similarities to the sneakers app are kind of spot on in a lot of ways, except that you would get the splash screen that said "Got 'em." And then like 5 minutes later, you'd be like, oh, actually, no, you don't. Here, I'm going to pass you off to somebody else to explain why you still don't have your truck. Oh, you know what? I'm going to give you other information that the other two people didn't give you, and it's different than what they said. And so, you know what? No, I'm going to pass you off to, dude, I got passed off to like 6 or 7 different people throughout the process. It took cumulatively a week and a half from the time I quote unquote secured my truck, did the online deposit. This is the spec I want. It's available. It's in, my zip code, etc. It turns out the truck was actually in Austin, not Dallas. They wanted to charge me $1,000 to bring it up here. I said, no, you're not, because on your website, when I plugged in my zip code, this is what showed up. Then, it was that person couldn't authorize that. So I got passed off to somebody else. And then that person, they said, well, we can do this, and these are the incentives that we're offering. Somebody else said, no, actually, we can't offer that incentive because you've got this other. It was just so many people not knowing what the other person was saying. And what should be a very seamless experience turned into a nightmare. And the only reason I stuck it out is because I really like the product, and I want to see them succeed, and on top of that, it's just, I guess I like to give people second, third, fourth chances. I should say that the truck is actually in the shop right now, not for anything that's broken, but because when it did finally get delivered to me, the whole glass roof was cracked, completely split down the middle. How somebody didn't notice that? That's the color I got right there, actually, Rivian blue. That's my truck. Except I have the Ocean Coast interior, which is like this cool whitish gray. So I don't know how all these things slip through the cracks, but I've literally got a message out to I think his name's RJ, the CEO. Because I just go big. I'm like, whether he'll ever get it or not, I don't know. But I'm like, man, I'm tired of dealing with people that can't actually implement some sort of change. And I don't want to badmouth any of these people along the way. They were all very nice and helpful in their own right. I feel that there's just a massive disconnect in this process. Trying to go all digital. Also, being in Texas, there's weird rules about dealerships. You can't walk into a dealership with an electric vehicle out here for whatever reason. So it has to be done online. Wow. Either way, there's just a whole... It's a newer company. I'm trying to, throw them a bit of a bone here and be a little patient. But man, Johnny Lieberman, who's a buddy of mine, he's an editor over at Motor Trend. He had one of these. He's one of the first people to get one a couple of years ago, which is saying something because the guy drives everything, and he's very harsh on everything. Rightly so. That's his job. This is one of his favorite vehicles he's ever owned, which is another reason I even entertained this to begin with. He wrote an article 18 months ago about how horrible his buying experience was as well. And I'm like, y'all had 18 months from that article being mass released to get your stuff together, and it's still this bad. So yeah, I don't want to badmouth them completely, but I've got some words if anybody wants to listen to some advice on how to streamline the whole process.
Yeah, they gotta make that better. And you would think that they would have that under control, especially like as much as they're selling and how popular the truck has been. You would think that they would have a better experience doing that. So here's the article here. Actually, there's an ad, but there's
there it is.
Ad goes away.
What was his? There it is. Yeah, I bought a Rivian R1T, and it was torture.
Torture, which is that's not the press you want.
Right. That was July. That's almost 2 years ago. Actually, that's insane.
I mean, I feel like so we have a family friend that guess I shouldn't say where, but runs a Tesla dealership, one of the bigger Tesla dealerships. I can't remember like how long he's been there, but he's been with the company quite a while. And his whole thing was that their customers would get, it was like the opposite. The struggle came after the car was delivered because they're delivering the cars in a lot of the cases. So like they're either dropping them at the house, handing the keys, and then the people that are buying them, maybe not as technologically advanced as you, Eric, might have some struggles with understanding the user experience on the car, right? Because if you're coming from, relatively no technology in your car, or, I mean, look, if you look at cars in general, the jump in technology that comes with an electric vehicle versus any other vehicle on the market besides like the really high end, would say BMW and up level cars, you're going from like Android Auto and Apple Play, CarPlay, and all these things that are like, I mean, I worked in that industry for a long time prior to getting into like the sneaker stuff, and that stuff is archaic, man. Like I bought a Honda Ridgeline a couple years, or I guess a year ago, and like it's it's like one of the worst user interfaces that I could possibly have imagined. Like just
wow,
it's just basic. It's not like, it's not that I wouldn't suggest the vehicle as a whole, but if you think about cars and the way that we use and experience them now versus the past, and I think this kind of relates to sneakers in the way that the Sneakers app, the Adidas Confirmed app, all of these like brand driven apps, and maybe to some extent, the StockX's of the world where like you just see a price and you have to pay the price kind of thing, or that you bring in that negotiation, but like the prices are significantly higher typically. Those apps basically take away the fun for a lot of people, right? Like there are plenty of people in their, let's say 30s, 40s, 50s that probably spent a lot of money on sneakers in the past. And now I'm one of them. Like I don't even look at sneakers releases very often as much as I probably should, because it's part of what I do and stuff. But like, I just don't want to play that game for every single pair that I'd like to have. And going back to the car side of things, you could have an incredibly terrible car for, I'm not saying for you or for Lieberman or for any of these people that are like really, truly like every day driven by, the passion for cars. But the average consumer, all you need is an interface that feels and moves as easily as an iPhone. And that will be the best car they will ever buy, regardless of how it drives, regardless of all of the other things that could go wrong with it. They're going to just remember that, hey, I got in and I said, play my Spotify, or, like show me my directions home. And all of a sudden, like that's a huge change for them. So it's kind of interesting to hear your experience, because going back to like what I was saying about the dealership, the Tesla dealership, it sounded like they were struggling because they don't have a lot of people at these dealerships, right? It's very streamlined compared to traditional dealerships, right? I went to the Honda dealership and there's 30 people roaming the lot waiting, like circling like sharks. And it's like, you just, find the person that is nicest to you kind of thing and work, you got to work through it. But with this new purchasing process that I think we'll eventually see with every brand, right? We've seen, if you're buying something brand new, you more than likely can do most of it online, even from a Toyota, a Honda, a Nissan. Yeah. But they're going to do something to get you into the dealership so they can sell you the warranty, get you on service, contracts and all those types of things. Yeah. I think it's really interesting to kind of like see that like the overall on both sides, the cars and kicks, the movement from the brands to go direct to consumer has in large part been a pretty bad experience across the board, it seems like.
See, this brings up a really interesting thought here is, we as consumers, are we fueling that fire? Because, if you're talking your average Toyota, your average Honda and everything like that, it's your average pair of sneakers. You're fine going into the store. There's going to be plenty of them to select from, and you're going to grab what you need and you're going to go. But when it comes to these like hyped vehicles, the Tesla Cybertruck, the Rivian R1T, or, the latest Jordan drop, or whatever the case may be, are we as consumers willing to just be like, is this part of the game, and deal with a bunch of this BS in order to get the end product that we desire? Is it becoming, that goes beyond the whole utility part of sneakers or, or cars, and dives into the reason that we love both of them, which is because they're desirable objects and they're things that we want. They're forms of self-expression. So are we fueling that fire by allowing this to happen because we really want this stuff in whatever way we can get our hands on it? And I feel like maybe the answer to that might be yes.
See, I sit on both sides of this one, because oh shit, I'm breaking things here. Sorry, guys.
Technical difficulties
or idiot difficulties. ID10T era, as they used to say at my old job. ID10T era. I feel on both sides of this. Yes, I get we have to deal with some friction for these, let's call them specialty items. There is a level of friction there. But I also feel like there is a massive opportunity for these brands to do better. So I don't expect it to be as easy as going into a Foot Locker or a Finish Line or DSW or whatever it is and grabbing a random pair of shoes. For something specialty, there's gonna be friction. But these brands, when they try to take anything in house as a not because a lot of sneaker brands in particular, I feel like they brought stuff in house, not because they felt that they could offer the customer a better experience, a better product, but because they wanted more profits.
Right.
And I think that they have to balance that. Yes, you're going to get more profits, but you need to be able to offer the customer a better product, a better experience, a better overall experience, better customer service, better UI. All of those things need to be better. Those profits need to be going somewhere and being something done as opposed to just going out to investors. The customer experience needs to be better. And I don't feel like brands are taking that sort of initiative. They're looking at it more from a business perspective, which I think in the end harms their product. And I feel like we've seen that a little bit with Nike, where they're now starting to pull away a little bit from their DTC experience and giving more stuff to local sneaker shops and neighborhood accounts and things like that, because they realize that the service, I think they realized the service component of it wasn't up to par. They saw it from a strictly, dollars and cents, pay the man kind of thing, but didn't really look at the overall customer experience. And that has, I think it's hampered some of the growth that they've had as a company.
I mean, that's a great point. It's also a perfect transition into talking a little bit more about Tesla and the Cybertruck, right? Like, I think, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Tesla typically only sells directly, right? Like, you're buying from a Tesla dealership that is owned by Tesla, even though the experience might mimic traditional car dealerships. It's still Tesla that owns that. Yeah. Where, if you buy a Ford or a GM, you're buying from a middleman essentially. And for a long time, I think that they've found ways around it now. But for the first 10, 12 years of Tesla's existence, they could not sell in the state of Michigan because Michigan does not allow dealerships or does not allow manufacturers to sell directly. So you have to go through a dealership. And Tesla was like, well, we don't do dealerships, so we're not going to sell in Michigan. Yeah. So I think that's kind of an interesting kind of parallel there, right? Like, Tesla, I would argue, is also trying to maximize those profits with every sale versus 100%. Letting the brand grow maybe as fast as it could.
I think that's profits and ego on that end. I think the guy at the helm feeds off control more than even money at this point. And so, proof is in the pudding, right? Like, he started talking about a truck. He didn't name it the Cybertruck, but 10 years ago, probably 2012, 2014, something like that, he mentioned a truck. And then it got unveiled to the world in 2019, when he threw that metal ball at the window, and it was supposed to be bulletproof and broke it, and which is by design, by the way. The guy's he's like an evil genius. I got to give Elon Musk credit where it's due. He knows how to create hype and everything. But that ties into this, right? Like, he promised that this vehicle was going to be out within 2 years or whatever the case may be. And guess what he did? He crowdfunded his pipe dream with millions of deposits in 24 hours, right? Yep. And it's like the amount of power that someone like that has, if they're really great at pitching whatever snake oil is. Now, mind you, the Cybertruck is now out and here, which I was one of those people that thought it would never actually see the light of day, and I was wrong. It's here. It's not without its quirks and problems, but he did deliver on it, albeit 2-3 years too late. Not too late, because they're selling like hotcakes, but 2 or 3 years past when he said they were going to be. So that goes back to giving these big companies all the power when the consumer should be the one kind of dictating where things go. Back in the day, that's how things work. It's supply and demand, and you can artificially minimize supply from the company standpoint, but if the demand is there or isn't there, then, you've got to adjust as a company. Nowadays, it seems like companies have a lot more control, and going to this quote unquote streamlined platform, direct to consumer platform, et cetera, especially as we evolve into the world of AI and everything being on the blockchain and whatever the future looks like, there's not going to be much human interaction. So we're going to be at the mercy of whatever's happening and whatever CEO has envisioned for the future of their company. And we're just going to kind of have to deal with it unless we figure out a way to really put our foot down, so to speak, and say, I like interacting with people, and I like having a little bit of control as a consumer, Yeah, I don't know what the answer to all that is.
I think the consumer is starting to vote with their dollar. And that's why you're seeing a lot of people pull back on the electric cars. And I think as a result of that, you see Tesla doing things that they haven't traditionally done.
0.99% interest, financing, and all these other
financing, lowering prices.
Yep.
I think the early adopter phenomenon that fueled Tesla is waning. And now you're breaking into the core consumer. Like, you got those early adopters and I would say the affluent sort of consumer. Right. Like, they've kind of already started to buy in. But now you have to convince the everyday consumer, and that's a lot harder. They don't have the disposable income, so there's going to be a more thoughtful approach to what they're doing. And I think that's an issue that Tesla's coming up against right now, is like as that energy for electric dies, and I know this goes into other things like infrastructure and things like that, but I think you're gonna start to see some of his hard stances start to be relaxed a little bit,
right?
Because at the end of the day, he's got to make money, and I think that principle always changes these hard lined folks. I don't know if we'll ever see Teslas in a dealership, so to speak, because I think there is a beauty to him owning the stack.
Sure.
It's similar to like the Apple owning the stack. Like, there's a certain beauty and control and really a utility that you can't necessarily do when someone else has their hand in the pie. And I feel like this is a great example of controlling the stack and doing it well, but definitely going to be forced to make some adjustments.
Yeah, I think kind of to your point too is you can only look, let's be real. The Cybertruck appeals to the hype beast equivalent of the automotive world, right? Yes. Like it's not. It's looks are subjective, whether you like it or not. I mean, it does look like a spaceship. There's some cool factor to it for sure, but it's not going to appeal to the masses, and the masses are the ones that are going to fill your pockets if you're Elon Musk. So I think you're right in that regard. Like, it's a good way to bring awareness to your brand and bring a lot of press to your brand and everything like that. But yeah, they got to figure certain things out. And I think Rivian is, while they're not creating quite as polarizing a vehicle as the Cybertruck, they've gone a different route. And I think they've done a very good job of marrying the practicality of a quote unquote normal vehicle with a bit of a futuristic look and a bunch of tech and all these other things. But they're taking this approach a little bit differently. And, they've got the R2 that will be releasing, I think, in 2025 next year, the smaller SUV. And then the R3, which looks like a Lancia Delta Integrale, in the future. They've got some cool product coming. And I think if they can get their process, from going online and clicking to actually getting a vehicle to the consumer, if they can get that streamlined, I think there's a world where they can, leapfrog someone like Tesla if they can't get out of their own way,
Yeah, I think the more, we have way more options now with electric vehicles too, right? Like, there's the new companies that we're talking about, the Tesla, the Rivian, you mentioned the Polestar. There's a lot of stuff out there. Like, we see a lot of the Lucids around the Bay Area because they're a Bay Area, company. And but you also got to realize that the average consumer now has the option to buy. You can get wouldn't suggest this, but you could buy a used Fiat electric for $10,000-$12,000, and it's probably a fun little car if you're only driving around, town. That's a way better. I mean, everybody's situation is different, but to me, that that becomes an option when people are looking at that or a used Prius or something like that, where they're just focused on the economy aspect of it. Well, there's now economy with a little bit of fun on the market on the used side that now gets more and more people into that. And I think with this new law that's going into effect or just went into effect was the Tesla supercharger network is essentially going to be like more adaptable to these other vehicles now, right? If I remember that. So
yeah, Rivian is now allowed to charge on the supercharger network. They're one of the first companies that is now kind of gotten the welcome mat laid out in front of them.
I wanted to circle back to the kind of pre-order stuff, though. I think that's really fascinating. And I think, so I first rode in a Tesla well before Elon Musk. You know, you could go to the dealerships in the Bay Area when they first did the Roadster that was built on the Lotus platform, right? So that car, to your point, you know, kind of, I guess, all the way back to the beginning, your comment about like car guys and that whole car culture aspect of it, that's the fastest car I have ever ridden in my entire life. Like it was like hands down, like, holy shit, this is the craziest thing I've ever sat in. And I've ridden in some fast cars before, but even that little Roadster threw you back so hard because the electric aspect of it is like, it's kind of unlimited. If you can figure out how to get it to the ground and get the car moving, you're going to be in a better place, you know, in terms of performance. But I think those things are not things that are common knowledge for average consumers, right? And the average consumer obviously doesn't need as much power as you have in your Rivian. But on you know, thinking about all of those things with the electric stuff and like the pre-order model and the hype of Elon Musk, and you know, like the new Roadster was unveiled in 2017, and you know, 7 years ago, we haven't seen anything.
Wow. Yeah.
The you know, we probably won't talk a whole lot about, you know, the trucking industry, but those Tesla trucks were unveiled even before that. So like, there's been so many things where it kind of feels like the consumer's getting the short end of the stick by having to throw money at these things that may or may not come around. Yeah. And granted, yes, in the grand scheme of things, $500 on a $50,000, $100,000 vehicle is nothing, right? So it's worth giving that a shot if you're really into it. And I think this car is beautiful. I honestly think the you know, first Tesla, whatever, the 4-door Model X or Model X?
No. Yeah. Model S was the sedan. The X was the SUV.
I think it's a beautiful car. I don't know that it was, you know, it would have never made sense for me living where I've lived over the past like decade, because I just wouldn't have been able to charge it. But it makes me wonder if, like, kind of going back to like the early access and the hype, you know, on the sneaker side, we've seen a little bit of that kind of stuff too, right? Where companies will, you know, in like Kith just unveiled like a really like comprehensive loyalty program, right? So if you've spent X amount of money, there's tiers to it. You get access to certain level of product, even customizing your product. And I think that kind of feels like the next evolution for some of the brands. I hope that this doesn't happen from a consumer's perspective, but it makes me think about what you said, Jacques. It's the money. At the end of the day, it's the money, right? Like they're going to make the choices because they need to make money. And, you know, if you're looking at the footwear industry, Nike's probably never been lower on the trajectory chart as to like the confidence that people have in where the company's going. And, you know, they are obviously in a much different place with John Donahoe as CEO and, you know, coming from eBay and like an aftermarket background where for the first 40 plus years of the company, you had, you know, Nike lifers who had spent 3-4 plus decades working for Nike and like lived it, you know? So I wonder if that is also a part of why some of these newer companies on the car side struggle. It's kind of a two-sided question for you guys. Like on the car side, it feels like the people that you experienced at Rivian didn't have maybe the confidence, the knowledge, all the answers with each person.
I think it goes much deeper than that. And I think a lot of the I don't want to say issue, but a lot of the reasoning behind this is just a massive shift in the way the way the next generation is looking at life and looking at careers, looking at things. Nobody seeks out a career that they're going to go to get a job and work for the next 30, 40 years. Very rarely is that a thing. It's a gig. It's been a gig economy and a gig kind of marketplace for a while. And I don't see that really changing. Like, nobody really aspires to go and work for, like, people that were at Ford and General Motors back in the day. That was a great union job early on, paid well, good benefits. You can do that till you retire and you'll be set. That doesn't really exist anymore. And so people that are taking these jobs at like Rivian and whatnot, first of all, let's be real, as much as I really like the R1T and stuff, the majority of cars nowadays are becoming more device-like versus, and there is some truth to the soul being kind of sucked out of them. You can kind of offset that by putting 835 horsepower in a truck and making it fun and putting all these cool little modes and things. But all that is to say that the majority of the people that are going to want to work for a company like this are probably not necessarily car people. They are tech people. They are into what's happening next. So when they get to a point where, like, okay, that's old tech because it's a year or two old, they don't care about it anymore. They're looking towards the future. And so there's a lack, in my opinion, of kind of pride in what you do and what you're part of nowadays. And I think that's a big part of it is, a lot of these folks don't go to work. It's a means to get by, which, look, I'm not going to hate on that at all. It's expensive to live nowadays. So whatever you can do to go out and make $1 to feed your family and stay on your own 2 feet and put a roof over your head, man, do it. But do it with a little bit of pride. That would be my kind of 45-year-old, not boomer, but as Ray, our manager, Jacques, and my manager would say, that's a very boomer thing to say, but I think there's some truth to that,
I 100% agree, and I think it happens also on the sneaker side of things, and I don't want to, I'll caveat this by saying it's my opinion and doesn't necessarily represent those sitting here with me, but I'm hardest on Nike and Jordan brand. I have the highest expectations for them because they set the standard and literally built the industry that I've been able to work in the past 15, 18 years, whatever it's been. That is like where I come from. It's always, I might be really harsh on them, but it's because I love them so much and have so many friends that have been through their, like memories from all the shoes that I was a part of, either bringing to market in my career or, nostalgia from being a kid. And I think that exact type of thing happened recently. Like there's this Kobe billboard that went up in Times Square. I'm sure you saw this, Jacques, but like, they're the Mamba logo and Kobe standing at the free throw line. And I saw it and was like, whoa, he's basically, when he broke his arm early in his career, he's standing there shooting free throws in like some pajama pants, but he's wearing Adidas shoes. Like if you are into sneakers, you know that he's wearing Adidas shoes, and this is a Nike billboard in Times Square. That is like the biggest slip up in Nike's history to me. Like, I don't think that you could, like, if you went back and looked at like what made that company so incredible in the, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, as much as like you might not have understood it at that time, it was the competitiveness, it was the passion, it was like, it was the people that had been there saying, hey, you're not going to, all the way up to Michael Jordan, right? All the way up to Phil Knight. You're not going to step foot on campus wearing a pair of Adidas. You're not going to step foot on campus wearing a pair of Reeboks, because those are our competitors and we're here to win. And I think that also is why we're seeing this, there's the technology aspect of it, but I think there's also just like companies aren't really truly like inspiring and encouraging people to stick around. We have access to the internet in a way that we never did. So we can see all these other companies that exist. And if you want to keep the best people, you've really got to embrace them and let them be a part of the movement. Otherwise, there's a movement happening somewhere today that is more exciting than whatever is happening in your life. Because the grass will always be greener to that extent. Always. Because you'll always see the flashiest, the most, grandiose things, and at least consider going to another company to experience that.
Wow.
So
yeah. Wow. That I hadn't seen this billboard. That's nuts.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. Talking a bit about everything that we've encompassed here with these, these companies and CEOs and this and that, as much as I like to knock Elon Musk, he just rubs me the wrong way in a lot of ways. But he is a bit of a genius in certain ways. And when you do things like the Cybertruck that are extremely polarizing and fun, it brings a bit of the hype. Is it going to bring all the dollars? Yeah. Not necessarily. But back to Nike, for example, like, when's the last time they did something so out there like the Air Mag, for example, and partnered with like, a mega budget Hollywood film and created this vision of the future and, all this quote unquote technology to like bring the hype to the brand. Cause there is, even though they're not going to sell 1 million versions of those sneakers, it's a halo product, right? And it's going to bring something in. And I mean, I'm saying this with sheer ignorance, but like, I can't think of anything that's gotten me that excited. There's some cool retro stuff, but that's all from their past. What new stuff has Nike come to the table with, or any shoe manufacturer for that matter, that's getting people hyped about the brand? Is that just a lost art? I don't know.
That's a great question. I can't think of anything recently. Everything is all like, the thing now is collaborations. That's what's kind of taking over the sneaker space. I don't know if there's a car equivalent to that, but it's all about collaborations, and that's the stuff that's selling. Or those are the halo product. Those are the hype products. Those are the high heat or energy products that Nike and really every brand is releasing. There aren't a lot of there isn't any. I haven't seen anything in a movie or TV show that kind of push the limits of like what's possible with sneakers or with shoes and just shoes in general. Yeah. Very limited in that regard.
Yeah. I mean,
unless you want to talk about an episode of Star Trek where they were wearing Jordan 10s, but I don't know if that counts.
It counts. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like kind of the, like we went down this NFT path, the dot swoosh stuff with Nike, right? And I don't know if it's true or not, but recently the news came out that they're going to release the shoes that were supposed to be NFT exclusive. So they were tied to an NFT. And now they're going to be on sneakers for everybody to buy. So all those people that paid a bunch of money for the exclusive NFTs, will now have access. Everybody will have access to the shoes. I don't know if like that's true, but that's news kind of broke recently of that. Which, if that's true, then that's like the only thing I can think of, and that's a really big fumble for Nike.
I was gonna say that's going the wrong way.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not the case. Optimistically, I would like to think that it's just somebody trying to make some news in the news cycle. But I think there hasn't been anything that has let's say the trickle down effect. Like Jacques and I formerly were on a podcast with Tiffany Beers, who designed the Nike mag, and the technology behind that shoe, the self-lacing, auto-lacing function, turned into basketball shoes, the Adapt line, so a Huarache running shoe, all controlled with an app or by buttons on the shoes. And that seems to have fallen off. It doesn't seem like they're carrying on that, kind of Adapt line. I haven't seen any new things from it for about 18 months. But that's the last thing I can think of. And even that was built on a story that started, in 1985. So like they planted the seeds for it, and then we're like kind of like not forced, but like obviously you want to embrace the fact that you made this happen back then and say, hey, this is something we can really sell. And it's cool, right? It's like incredibly cool. There's so much nostalgia there. And I think those things don't happen. Again, like I'm going to sound a little boomerish, but like this happens to be like the reason why I think Nike doesn't move the needle the way they used to for the young kids, right? You see plenty of kids wearing, maybe a Kyrie shoe or a KD shoe or some of the younger guys, but they're in Under Armour most of the time, the 10 to 12 up to like 12. Then they get into like junior high and high school, and then they maybe decide on what brand they want to go with. But if there's a choice out there right now, Adidas has done really well with the Anthony Edwards stuff. So that's going to be like the kind of pinnacle of choice, but it's not a technology thing. It's just an aesthetic, like the shoes are great, aesthetic. But all modern basketball shoes have incredible cushioning for the most part. Like you'd be hard pressed to find something that was actually old in technology wise. And I think what's really interesting about that is if you think about like the early 2000s, the late 90s, everything Nike did was experimental, from like Jordans, every Jordan looked completely different. You had straps around some, you had mesh on the side of some, you had air bubbles on some, you had sock liners on some. And that was every aspect of the business. Running shoes, basketball shoes, whatever it was, you had these kind of experiments that went public and got public feedback. And I don't think they do that anymore. I think, like the easiest one for like the average consumer to think of probably is like a Foamposite. Like that's a wild shoe, wildly overpriced, even $200 when it comes out, $250 as a retro now,
and still overpriced to this day.
And like probably, like I'm not going to go spend that right now, but there is no way I'm not going to think about it if I see that shoe on the shelf every time in that bright royal blue.
Sure.
And I think that's probably similar to like that's the closest I can wrap my head around to being to similar to like a Cybertruck, where it's like there's just wow factor to it. Like you look at it and you think that's either the ugliest thing I've ever seen or that could be fun.
The most amazing thing that you've ever seen. There's a wow factor to it.
I think kind of, to start buttoning this up, I think that's what's missing by and large is the wow factor. And I think maybe just my thoughts here, but maybe it's because the vast majority of companies are trying to appease shareholders and bottom line. And when you have, like Nike, like you just said, in the 90s, 2000s, early 2000s, et cetera, taking all these risks, you're going to have some misses. Not everything's going to hit. And I think nowadays in every industry, not just cars and kicks, a lot of people are too afraid to take those misses and take those L's and move forward. They just want everything to be a hit. And when you try to focus on making everything a hit, man, it's just you're shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, there's functionality involved here, but automotive design and sneaker design is a creative world. And as creatives, all of us, like if everything that we put out there had to be, if we were saying we're either going to put out hits or we're not going to put out anything, none of us would be where we are. Because you all fall on your face. And, there's an old interview years ago, and I can't remember where I first saw it, but with DJ Jazzy Jeff, and he was talking about the creative process and when he and the Fresh Prince had a lot of success and everything like that. His whole thing, and this is something I'm going to get tatted on myself one day, is, as a creative, you've got so much inside you that your job is to get it out there. It's not to monetize every bit of it. It's not to make hits all the time. It's just to get it out there. Like you have to die empty as a creative. If you die with anything inside, you're doing the world a disservice, because whatever you thought might not be a hit may have been the world changing thing or whatever, without going too deep into it. And I think too many people are afraid to die empty. They want to just have a perfect track record and not fall on their face over and over again.
I love that. Yeah. I think that's a perfect way to end the episode.
Yep.
Die empty.
There you go.
I don't think we can top that.
I don't think so either. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit the links in the description. We'll catch you in the next episode.
It's been fun, y'all.
Peace.
See ya.